Chapter 5. Lenny is alone inside the barn stroking a dead puppy. Worried that George will find out and won't let him tend the rabbits, Lenny buries the dead pup in the hay and says that he will claim to have found it dead. But then he uncovers the pup and strokes it again, realizing that George will know he killed it because George always knows, and Lenny won't get to tend the rabbits. Lenny becomes so angry that he hurls the dead puppy across the barn. Shortly after having thrown the puppy, Lenny picks it up again, stroking it and deciding that maybe George won't care. Curly's wife enters the barn and asks Lenny what he has. Lenny repeats George's instructions that he is not to talk to her. She stays, however, and again asks him what he is covering up. When Lenny shows her the dead puppy, she tells him it was just a mutt and no one will care, but Lenny explains that George won't let him tend the rabbits because he did a bad thing again. Curly's wife tells Lenny of her life and her missed opportunity to travel with the show that came through her hometown. Lenny responds absently with concern about his dream farm and the rabbits he will have. Following his comment, Curly's wife chatters on, explaining more about her lost chance to become an actress and how she met Curly. As she talks, she moves closer, confiding in him about the life she might have had. Lenny, however, is still trying to figure out how to get rid of the dead pup so that George won't know what he has done. When Lenny explains that he likes to pet soft things, Curly's wife reveals that she too likes to feel silk and velvet, and she invites him to feel her hair, which is very soft. He does, but his big clumsy fingers start to mess it up, and she angrily tells him to let go. As she tries to get her hair away from Lenny, he becomes scared and holds on more tightly. When she begins to scream, Lenny covers her mouth with his hand. A struggle ensues, Lenny's panicking and Curly's wife's eyes wild with terror until her body flops like a fish, and then she is still. When Lenny realizes that she is dead, he panics and pours the hay to partially cover her. Hearing the horseshoe game outside, he understands that someone will come in sooner or later and discover the bad thing he has done. Immediately he remembers to hide in the brush until George comes. Picking up the dead pup, he leaves to go to the hiding place. Candy finds Curly's wife and runs out to find George, who, upon seeing the body, knows what has happened. George considers what will happen to Lenny. They could lock Lenny up, but he'd starve and people would be mean to him. Candy says they need to let Lenny get away because Curly will lynch him. But George realizes how hopeless escape would be. He tells Candy to give him a minute to go to their bunkhouse before telling the other men. Then George will come along as though he had not already seen Curly's wife dead. Candy asserts that he and George can still have their farm, but George realizes that it will never happen now. Now George has no dream, and he will end up working like the other ranch hands and spending his money in a pool room or in some lousy cat house. Carlson, Whit, Curly and Crooks come back in the barn with Candy, and following them, George. Curly immediately blames Lenny, saying he will go for his shotgun and shoot Lenny in the guts. Carlson follows Curly out of the barn, going for his Luger. When Slim asks George where Lenny might be, George tells Slim that Lenny would have gone south, knowing all along that the little pool is north of the ranch. When George claims that they might find Lenny first and bring him in and lock him up, Slim explains that Curly will want to kill him, and even if he doesn't, how would Lenny like being locked up and strapped down like an animal in a cage? Carlson and Curly return, and Carlson claims that Lenny has stole his Luger. Curly, carrying a shotgun, tells Carlson to take Crook's shotgun, and the men leave, taking George with them to find Lenny.